turned into a bonzo shape really quickly.
Isn't it? Yeah.
You have bonzos?
No.
Oh, Radley. Radley.
My friend Anne, who I used to work with, she didn't do pop culture either, and it had some very funny moments where I just said something about like Darth Vader. She went, "At Star Wars, not Star Trek, right?"
And you go, yeah, that's what you need to know about this.
Anne, really? Yeah.
Gentlemen, very good health.
Cheers.
And yours. Clink. Clink.
I'll not add any of mine to you. I feel like I should have got some sort of brown fluid now.
Yeah, it's going fine. So what we were talking about before is this friend of mine who, as I said, she was with somebody. She had a bit of a thing for somebody else, and she was saying, "Well, yeah, it's just chemicals, isn't it? It's just hormones in my brain. I know that, but that's just that's not actually helping you. Mm-hmm. That's not solving any problem. You're describing a biological process. It doesn't. The reasons you have emotions. That's nice. How are you going to deal with that? Mm-hmm. It's not as if you can just go, well, I shall moderate my output of these hormones. And it's the same thing with any kind of intense emotional experience. And
well, the thing is, you don't really want to moderate the output of some hormones or some emotions because they are what tells you you find this situation meaningful.
I think also having while it doesn't help solve it, knowing that there is a biological, reasoning can help you feel a little bit less crazy about it.
Do you guys get the thing where somebody asks you to explain it, and then you get halfway through explaining it, and you realise that this is doing you no good at all?
Yeah.
And it is in fact actively harming your mental state right now, and you need to get out.
Yeah. You get in that.
Yeah.
All right.
I get that fairly commonly.
I do some if I've talked about some of the stuff that I've been through. It's kind of roughly 50-50 chance that I'll wake up in the night and go, oh God, why was I talking about that? Mm-hmm. And it's uncontrollable. And it's.
How was it after last week?
After last time, I couldn't sleep. I was too high. I was happy.
In a good way, though.
Yeah.
Not for me. Not good.
Not good.
One of the things I found is that it's very difficult to have a top trumps. This. It's very difficult to say this depression is worse than this depression.
Yes.
Or this depression is worse than. It's either traumatic or it isn't. You can either identify that this person has depression, and it's obvious, or it isn't. I think once you've gone past that inflection point, you understand.
Yeah.
Because your cognition has been changed in such a way that you comprehend what is going on.
Yeah.
It's pretty much always there, and there are moments. So, I think the best description I've ever had of it really is there's a video about the black dog, and it's about having this dog that you're that's with you everywhere, and there's some. Yeah, and I think that's probably the best way I've ever had it described to me, and it's certainly the one I connect with most. But there's a fabulous bit in that where he's just trying to do anything, dragging the dog around, and it's not even necessarily being really sad. It's just having no emotion at all, nothing. It's almost numb, but even doing anything just seems really difficult. And in the little cartoon they describe it because it's really difficult because you've got this little person, this great big enormous dog. So getting out of bed with a great big dog attached to your back is really hard. Explain that to other people. Yeah, often if I'm at work, people will say, how are you? And if I'm having a reasonably good day, I'll have some sort of normal answer. But some days my answer is I'm here. And that is, some days the fact that I'm there is phenomenal. The amount of effort it's taken to get there is just...
You climbed a mountain. The actual thing is not what you feel, it's your cognition. It's when you start entering the process of I'm going to do the thing, it's like you send the signal to your body and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And that arises these kind of feedback processes that go, right, okay, so this isn't happening, what's going wrong? Am I defective in some way? Is there a problem here? And of course, the problem is, yes, there is a problem here, but it's just not manifesting, and you can't pin down exactly what it is because it's really deep in your cognition.
But you're, like the way you describe that, when you're like, I'm going to do this thing, and then nothing happens, like...
Even though you've got totally the motivation to do that, you could reach forward and you know the beer is tasty and you want to drink the beer, but for some reason your hands remain still and you're staring at the drink.
Yes.
It's not paralysis, but for all effects and purposes it might as well be.
Yeah.
That's my little...
Yeah. It's really, really hard to describe. But in terms of just a raw emotional, it is a kind of a flatlining and a struggling. Anything I do to try to lift myself out of it makes me feel negative things. And if someone else tries to,
of course,
that can be terrible. You know, and just
because not only have you got your own cognition, you've got the entire social situation. Are they feeling pride over lording this ability over you, or are they feeling pity? Are they insulting you? All kinds of different things.
Well, it's just almost like, for me, it's like somebody's saying, oh, so what's wrong and how can I do this? Well, you can't possibly understand, so why are you asking me these questions? Why can't you just leave me alone?
For me, it's like walking. Everyone walks. We walked here, you walk to the car, you walk everywhere. Sometimes you walk and your footsteps are soft. Sometimes you walk and your footsteps are hard and you don't think about it. You spring on new grass, you sink in mud, but you're just walking. Depression is like that for me. It has 1,000 different shades. I often think it's the hardest part about depression, in that by its nature it makes itself hard to share.
Yes.
But it's interesting that once you've got a group of people who are able to comprehend what is going on, all of a sudden you've got that connection, which is lovely.
It makes all the difference if you say to somebody, I just can't today, and they go, okay, and they don't try to solve the problem. No. They just go, right, okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
There's a blanket, there's a cup of tea. I'll leave you alone unless you want something.
Do you need anything?
Yeah.
Is the sweetest words you can hear.
Yeah.
Because you can go, no, or you can go, and either way they go, absolutely. And that's rich.
Bring me 12 chocolate croissants and a duvet.
Yes. Oh. That's my default answer from now on.
There are definitely still groups and places that just don't get it.
Well, there's a massive stigma, isn't there? And it's a personal thing.
Great.
It's like, how do I actually... Well, I think...
There's a stigma on being found to not comprehend depression.
Well, in some parts of society, yes. In others, really not. And I've encountered people who just don't know what it is and have no sympathy for people with it. They literally cannot empathise. And also, from my point of view, actually admitting that I had it and talking about it, especially admitting it to my family, was massively. It was awful.
I mean, I'm very lucky in that I have an incredibly supportive family. Yeah, I talk to my mother and I talk to my grandmother and I go, I've been having a bad time. I'm thinking about going back on the Taspine or something like that. And they go, oh, Joshua, no. And you go, no, that's a good, that will help me. And they go, oh no, not the drugs again. And you go, no, it's not like that.
Not like that.
And they can be the most supportive, the most wonderful, the most lovely, and they are. And they still cannot understand a single thing. And that's why you don't tell them. That's why you suffer in silence, because they don't have the vocab. And you have to make that noise. It's obligatory.
Yeah. And then ask about whether they've seen the latest sports ball.
Yeah, football and tits. That's what you need to talk about.
Yeah, sport. Did you see that sporting ball? Didn't they sport the ball really well?
Oh, that team sports so hard.
Yeah, they sport so hard.
I think sport was the real winner there.
On topic of sexuality, though, I don't really know what I am. because all of my partners have been male that have turned female during the course of the actual relationship, which is weird. I don't actually have a word for it.
I went through a phase of turning women gay, which works very well for them. But I mean,
Where does that put me?
See, there's some of the stuff that I talk about that I've experienced, and the big trigger for me for actually experience, because I'd had depressive blips in my life and anxious blips in my life, and I didn't know how to describe them. I didn't know they were depression. I think, you know, I went through a divorce. A couple of days after, it is, and you know, it was you know, a very long and intense and scary period. So while it is useful to talk about these things to help draw the sting and help other people with the same experiences, so you know, I'm a man who's experienced physical abuse from a woman. That's a scary thing. It's a different experience to how a woman would experience it, and I understand that, and I'm not in any way trying to belittle the fact that women do experience a huge amount more abuse in that respect and are much more endangered by it, but it was traumatic. And it does cause me to have those experiences of depression and anxiety and so on and so forth. I'm better. There was a time when a woman raising her voice to me in any way would kind of freak me out and would cause these hangover issues. Now it's much better. But yeah, it's still there. There are still triggers. Being seen to talk about your emotions as a man is commonly seen as a sign of weakness.
I mean, have you ever seen a Viking in a mankini? To my eternal damnation and to the scarring of my brain, have had that experience. But that kind of person is not vulnerable. They are willing to show off that side of themselves and be really courageous, and that's a really strong part of them.
Well, it's a different kind of vulnerability. I mean, for a long time I couldn't cry. Certainly couldn't cry in front of people. And although that's ludicrous bullshit,
it is absolutely ludicrous, but I do know.
I still have it.
Yeah.
I want to cry most days, and I just don't, or I can't, or there's something in me that goes, you can't do that, don't do that, stop. Despite the fact that I go, that's ridiculous, it's fine, I trust these people, I can't.
What I find really interesting is that having been made to grow up as a youngster, as a girl, was how much of I think actually the conception of what is acceptable as a man is much smaller now than the conception of what's actually acceptable as a woman. Like, they have a lot more freedom of expression in all sorts of things, and what I just discovered was that actually the expectations as a man seem to be immensely narrow.
It absolutely doesn't define you in terms of the word define, but the experiences you get as a result of having had depression definitely affect how you behave in the future, and affect how you adapt to things, and affect how you cope with things, affect how you approach things. Everything is affected by it because it's a part of you.
I would say it doesn't define me, but it has shaped me. I have depression and I live with depression, and I will have to look after it forever. Joy. But like, I'm not it's not who I am. It doesn't make me who I am. Like, it's another part of me. You know, I'm a vet, I'm a dancer, and I also have depression.
Yeah, I think you put it best when you said it doesn't define me, but it shaped me. And I think it has. And I think that there are certain personality traits I have that meant that the circumstances that I came across in my life have pushed me in that direction, and I've experienced depression and anxiety. I'm not like some people who literally they have a chemical imbalance, which means they just lack the stuff that they need.
I think at the moment my depression does define me. I think right now I can't talk to someone without my depression being the lion's share of what's going on. I can't have an interaction, do a thing, have a drink. There is a silent partner in every conversation, and it is my depression. And it hasn't always been this way. And pray it won't always be this way. But right now, yeah, my depression defines a lot of who I've talked to and who they've talked to. And one day it won't be. And that will be lovely.
When the boat did rock, well, he threw his sails to the wind, and he didn't mind the rain. It felt cool on his skin. But it came as quite a shock to find